And I love Palm Sunday. I love this particular story, this part of the larger story, because I can relate. I can relate to getting caught up in the emotions of a moment and a cause and a crowd, being part of an event that pulls you with excitement and gives hope that, something good, special is happening, something new is possible. And I can relate to realizing that I might just be in over my head and looking for a way out sometimes. In our story today, we're on the road again, and this time on the way to Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem is abuzz for the Passover festival. There's activity. It is swelling with visitors from all over the known world. We might think a Super Bowl Sunday in Atlanta, or maybe Augusta this week with the Masters, just bigger. People everywhere, people excited, all kinds of people selling their goods on the sidewalk, performers entertaining crowds as new people are flowing by. Sometimes it seems that the whole world has come to Jerusalem. And of course, the security forces are out, Roman soldiers armored and riding impressive, well-groomed horses along the streets to keep the peace. And basically, families are pouring into the city, preparing for their Passover parties, which are really extended family reunions, meant to remind them where they all have come from and who they are. And Jesus' followers are excited too. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this year everyone will understand how important he is. So they lead their procession into the city, and they're waving palm branches, and they're throwing their coats on the ground in front of their guest of honor, who is riding not a well-groomed steed, but a donkey. And it's exciting, and you can't help but want to sing along with the rest. Hosanna, blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. It's a great day. And that's how it starts. But things don't go as planned or imagined. What starts as a celebration turns into a stress-filled time of decision-making. And this is our story. It's not just something 2,000 years ago. The story that starts today with palms and parades and ends in hiding in dark corners describes us. Describes you and me and probably everyone we know. Why? Because we start with the best of intentions and we don't always follow through. We are fickle and we are brave and we are scared. And this is also a story of friendship and betrayal, a story of high hopes and deep despair. It's a story of what fear can do to love when you want to believe but you aren't really sure that love is going to win out in the end. So everyone was feeling inspired and hopeful that this Jesus was going to be the true Messiah, the one that would change their lives and improve the world, a famous teacher and healer. Maybe he would bring that political overthrow of Rome. Maybe there would be national peace and prosperity. As our story begins and everyone's traveling together and Jesus rides this donkey into Jerusalem, we are introduced to three main characters that we follow as this story develops. There's Simon Peter, and there's Judas, and there's Jesus. And these are people that we can identify with. They're seemingly friends. They have common purpose. They are swept up in this joyous parade. But then our scene changes to the evening of the Passover, and they have shared what will be their last meal together. And now they seem to sense that Jesus is in danger. And this is where they become the main characters of our story. This is where each person has a decision to make. And how will each one respond to the events that lie ahead? Each one is the center of their own story, kind of like we are in our own minds. Now we realize that Judas has already hedged his bets. He has already checked in with the religious leaders to see if they will take care of him, if he turns his friend and teacher in for the reward that they have offered. And Jesus knows this. He may know by the way that Judas has been disappearing and showing up again lately, or by the way his hands fidget and his eyes look away as they share this meal. Now, Peter thinks that he's made his decision, and he tells Jesus, I am ready to go anywhere with you, to prison, to death. And he means it from the bottom of his heart. Only he doesn't really know his own heart. He doesn't consciously know that although he loves his teacher more than anyone he has ever known, he hasn't yet conquered his own fears. He's still riding on that Palm Sunday high of enthusiasm and that adrenaline rush, being on the edge of danger, but not yet really having faced the fear. And then there's Jesus, who so far keeps taking steps forward. With dinner finished, along with his attempt to teach them one more time what he knows, he walks with them to a garden, goes to their favorite place, and they pray. And Judas is again slipped away. Jesus has his final decision to make alone. He steps away from the others to pray. Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me, but not my will, but yours. And he feels the presence and the strength of God with him, and still feels the fear, the emotional turmoil inside. He is facing his fears head on. He's imagining the pain that is likely to come if he stays true to this path. He's making sure that he's ready to be calm and compassionate to anyone who provokes him. And when he is at peace with his choice, he comes back and he finds the disciples, and they are sleeping. We're told because of grief, which is an interesting way of describing them, but it sounds much more like depression. They're not crying, they're not angry, but they're sleeping while Jesus is facing his fears. They are avoiding theirs. Let's not think about it. Maybe this will just all go away. I'm too tired to make this decision. I just need to sleep a little longer. But their nap of denial is interrupted by Judas, who has made his decision. He'd rather believe that Jesus is wrong than to face the death, the loss that might come. So he steps up to kiss the one who was once his closest friend, and he tips off the temple police who have been searching. This is the one that you want. And Peter is right here watching these events unfold. This might be that moment when his fear took over and made the decision for him. When another person pulls out a sword to defend them, Jesus tells them no. There will be no violence from our side of this conflict. And he heals the wounded man. Peter realizes that standing up for Jesus is not going to end in a glorious victory in battle, no military success, not even a safe negotiation and a compromise with the other side. And this is where he starts to back away and slips into the sidelines to see what might happen next. And they shuffle into groups in the courtyard. Peter moving farther from his friends. Alone in the crowd, he manages to deny that he has any connection to Jesus 3 times. I don't know him. And their eyes lock, and for a moment, he knows what lies at the bottom of his heart. It's the fear that keeps us from being the people we are meant to be. To love is what makes us the people God has called us to be. So with our 3 protagonists, our 3 characters, we're presented with 3 ways of responding to life, to responding to the challenges and the conflicts that arise in front of us. We can be like Judas and rationalize our behavior and change what we believe to avoid the conflict, to stay on the right side or the winning side. Judas used to believe that Jesus was the prophet of God and the Messiah and meant to lead them to freedom. But when Jesus made choices that didn't fit his expectations, he backed out. If this Jesus really loved us and wants us to love our enemies, to walk into their trap without any defensives, that's just not right. I'm going to stick with the people in power. So rather than face his fears, Judas gives in to them. Peter gives us that second option of avoidance. Some I think most of us know pretty well. He didn't just deny Jesus in the crowd. He was in denial of his own fear. He didn't want to look at the facts of what was coming, what was about to happen, and make a true choice. He wanted to sleep and hope it would go away. Peter and Judas both were saying one thing while doing another. Judas was conscious of his two-faced ways, and he chose to follow his fear, and Peter let his fears take him where he didn't want to go and turn him into that person he didn't want to be. But in this story, this part of the larger story, Jesus shows us another way, a truer way, a better way. He was not so divinely brave that he had no fear. We get to see his fear, and he faces it full on. He has fears, and he has enough faith to see his fears through. To look and hope for another way, but recognize that the way of love is so completely true that there is no other choice. So the truth is, we are both faithful and fickle. We are some days truly committed, and some days we're turning our back on our ideals for God's dream of humankind and creation. We feel courage one minute, and we're overcome with fear the next. Still, we hope, and we continue to hope together in the midst of our ambivalence and our weakness, knowing that God does not abandon us, even as we abandon God. No matter what choices we have made in the past, God continually provides a pathway for us towards wholeness, towards healing, towards faith and love again. And faith, our faith is not an escape from reality, as it is often referred to in the media. Our faith draws us into reality, the reality of this world. And Jesus, who was one of us, and Jesus, who was true to God, confronts the worst that human beings can do in order to give us the grace to be the best human beings that we can be. In every age, in every stage of our lives, we are faced with fearful situations. We are faced with choices. And now, in this time, in this place, it's our turn. It's our turn to show the world what God is like, to show the world what love looks like, to show the world what it looks like to love your enemies, the alien and the stranger and the other, to show the world what it looks like to forgive those who trespass against you. In a violent world, it's our turn to show the world and to show our friends and our families and our colleagues what it looks like to follow the Prince of Peace. So as we enter today into this story of Holy Week, the question is ours. The decision time is here. Who will you choose to be? Who will you choose to follow? Will we embrace this wondrous and dangerous love?